Are you interested in getting into illustration? Maybe you're a student or a beginner, or you're a little further along and you're hoping to quit your boring day job and make money from your art. I'm James, an illustration agent, and I help illustrators build their careers. I'll tell you a little bit more about what an agent is and does later on. On this YouTube channel, I teach new illustrators about the business part of the industry. If you want tips on the creative part, there are much more qualified and talented people you can learn from. But if you want to know how to turn your illustrations into a business, you're in the right place. At various points through the video, I'll point you towards other videos on specific subjects if you want to dive deeper into any of them. I'll put links in the description too. If you feel like I miss any essential information or you have questions, put them in the comments and I'll answer them. Since I've been in the industry quite a while, it's not always easy to know what a new artist needs to know, so feel free to ask and don't forget to subscribe. Working in the illustration industry can be brilliant at times and very difficult at others. Most illustrators are freelancers, which means they work for themselves, and typically freelancers of any kind face a lot of ups and downs, busy periods and quiet periods. That requires a certain mental toughness and a lot of resilience. I tried to be a freelance illustrator many years ago, and I couldn't do it, partly because I hated that lack of stability. It probably makes sense to define illustration first, and you can get a dictionary definition easy enough, but I'll give you my definition. It's an image with a purpose, other than simply to look nice in itself. A lot of art is made to simply be a beautiful image in and of itself. Obviously, art often has a meaning and a story behind it too, but the end goal of that art is the art itself. Illustrations, on the other hand, have a job to do. Illustrators work with commercial clients like magazines, publishers, advertising agencies, and a lot more. Here's another video where you can see what an illustrator can do with their work. Of course, illustrators also sell prints and art for art's sake too, but I'll focus on the commercial work in this video. Those clients have a problem to be solved, and an illustration is sometimes the best way to do it. So here are a few jobs that an illustration does. An illustration can help explain a complicated idea. Maybe it's an article in a science magazine about some theory about dark matter or quantum teleportation. You can't use a photo for something like that, but a skilled illustrator could make an image that helps the reader understand what it's all about. An illustration can also help tell a story. Children's books are the simplest example. The written words talk about Winnie the Pooh getting in trouble for graffiti in a bus stop or whatever. I don't know much about Winnie the Pooh. Then the illustration on the page shows the scene and helps people imagine the characters. Illustrations are often used to sell products too. Look around any bookshop at the book covers, but also food and drink in a supermarket, or designs on a t-shirt, or adverts for brands. In the olden days, before cameras were invented, illustration was used to document the natural world, animals and plants and maps and that kind of thing. And it's still used that way today, but less out of necessity and more out of a creative point of view. There are plenty more things an illustration can do, but the common theme is that they all serve a purpose and they have a job to do. So if you can get into that mindset next time you set out to draw something, you'll be going in the right direction. Think about what it will be used for and who the client is and what they want the image to communicate. Let's talk a bit about the people who are actually doing it and what their day-to-day looks like. Some illustrators will have gone to school to study illustration, others won't. You can learn a lot from a good illustration course at a university, but you can also learn a lot by yourself from books and YouTube and Skillshare for a fraction of the cost. But that only works if you can motivate yourself to learn. Either way is perfectly fine, and you don't need a degree to be an illustrator. The important thing is how good the work is, and formal education may help that, but it doesn't guarantee it. If you're willing to put in the practice and do it by yourself, you have just as much a chance as anyone else. As a very simple explanation, an illustrator will take some time to learn their art skills, whether it's drawing, painting, digital art, 3D art, whatever else you can think of. And along the way, they'll learn the software that goes along with that. Some digital illustrators are using Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, or they might use Clip Studio Paint or Affinity or Procreate. I don't know much about 3D software, but I know there's a lot to learn there. Everyone does it slightly differently, and it's all fine. As long as you can deliver what the client needs, you can make the work however you like. If you're a traditional artist, you need to be able to scan or photograph your work to a professional level and perhaps be able to edit it once you've got the digital file to get rid of smudges or brighten up the colors or whatever else the client needs. That process of learning the creative skills and the software is your first step. There are lots of free tutorials online on YouTube and Skillshare classes you can take to learn those skills. I can't teach you that, but there are plenty of great artists who can. The next step, once you've learned the technical skills, is to develop your own style. In the creative industries, if you want to get noticed, you have to stand out. If your illustration style is the same as 100 other artists, then you are competing with 99 other people to win a project, at least. If your style is unique and eye-catching, then you have a better chance of winning projects with clients that are looking for what you're offering. You can't please everybody with your illustration style. If you try to appeal to every kind of client, your work will look generic and it won't stand out. Again, I'm not creative enough to be able to teach you how to find your style, but you could try this course by Andy J. Pizza on Skillshare. I suspect that's not his real name, but he's a really great motivational teacher. You can get a free month of Skillshare with the link I'll put in the description. Learning the technical skills and then developing a style is a long process, especially the style, because that will evolve over the entire course of your career. An illustration degree would take 4 years, plus maybe a foundation year before that. So think of the process in terms of years rather than months. If you're motivated and dedicated, you could probably do it faster, but it's definitely not going to be a quick process. The next step for an artist is to create and curate a portfolio of work. These days, an illustrator's portfolio is a website. It used to be a printed folder of your work that you would go and show to clients in real life. But not so much now. You don't need a printed portfolio unless someone specifically asks you for it. The basic requirements for an online portfolio are a selection of your illustrations, maybe with a bit of a written explanation of what the image is about or what it was made for, an about page where you tell potential clients a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then a way to contact you, email primarily, and phone too. There's lots more you could add, but these are the essentials. You're showing the work, you're giving people a bit of information about what you do, and you're giving them a way to contact you. Check out this video for an example of an illustration portfolio I really like. A lot of artists use website builders like Squarespace or Wix, which you've got to pay a monthly fee for. But if you're looking for a free way to do it, Behance is a good place to start. I'll put links to everything I mentioned in the description so you can take a look through later. Your portfolio isn't where you store all of your work. You can do that on social media if you want. Your portfolio is a planned and curated selection of your best work. If you're trying to get into magazine illustration, you'd show a lot of work that is appropriate for those clients. If you want to get into kids' books, you'd show work that's appropriate for kids' books. But generally speaking, for a new illustrator who has found their style, my advice would be to apply that style to all kinds of different subjects. If you only show illustrations that are appropriate for magazines, you won't be showing anything that will appeal to all the other possible clients that are out there. I think it's good to try everything and just see what happens. Over time, you'll find out what you enjoy the most and what you're best at, but there's no rush to specialize in one particular area. You may never specialize, but that actually sounds like a more fun and varied career path to me, where you can work on all kinds of projects and you're not limited to any one area of the industry. Your portfolio will evolve over time. You'll add new things and remove old things, and it should get better with each iteration. So when you've got version 1 of your portfolio ready and online, you are, in theory, ready to work with clients. But clients won't find your portfolio simply because it's online. I speak from experience because I put my portfolio up many years ago and then waited, assuming someone eventually would find it, but they didn't. And why would they? That goes for social media too. The chances of the right client who's looking for your style of work at the right time is tiny. This is where you have to learn a new set of skills: self-promotion, research, marketing, and networking. Your portfolio exists online. Now you have to tell the right people where it is. So let's use magazines as an example. You likely know a lot of magazines that have illustrations in them. There are also hundreds more that you've never heard of. So you'd start with a good old Google search, looking at the different kinds of magazines and making a list of them. And here's a handy tip. If you do a Google image search of any magazine name, plus the word illustration, you'll either see some illustrations come up in the results, which suggests they do hire illustrators, or you won't, which probably means they don't hire illustrators, so there's not much point sending your work to them, because not all magazines do. Then you need to find the right person at that magazine to send your work to. Usually that's an art director. These are the people in the organizations that hire illustrators or photographers. The editor in a magazine will take care of the words, the graphic designer will take care of the page layout, and the art director will find the art. I'm generalizing here, and often there's a lot of crossover, but if you start by looking for art directors, you're on the right track. And this is the same for all kinds of organizations too, not just magazines. You'd find their email address, if you can. Some are harder to find than others. then you get in touch. I have a whole video on how to introduce yourself to a client with some good email tips, so I'll keep it light here. You want to send them a friendly introduction to you and your work. You don't need to be overly formal, but you should be professional. Art directors have limited time, so keep the email short and sweet. Tell them who you are, where you are, what you do, and what you want. And most importantly, attach a couple of images of your best work that's appropriate for this particular client, and include a link to your portfolio, because the images are what will catch their eye first in their inbox, not a block of text. If you don't hear back from the client, send a follow-up email a week or so later. Maybe they were busy, or maybe they were on holiday, or any number of other things could have prevented them from replying, so a follow-up is always a good idea. It is possible that they don't like your work, or rather, they don't think it's appropriate for their projects, and that's fine. Nothing to worry about. Truth is, you'll never know if they don't reply, but that shouldn't put you off trying again in a few months. By then, you'll have new and improved work to show them. Most art directors would love to send you a friendly reply and give you some advice and be supportive. They probably know exactly what it's like to be in your shoes, but they'll be getting a lot of these emails every week, and it's impossible to reply to everyone, or they wouldn't have enough time to do their job. This is where that mental toughness and resilience is needed. If you send out 10 emails to clients one day and you don't hear back from any of them, that's tough. But so are you. And hopefully you won't let it put you off trying again in the future. The better your work gets as time goes on, the more likely it is that you'll get a reply and, hopefully, a project. It will take time to land your first client, maybe weeks, maybe months, but if you're regularly finding new clients to show your work to through your research and doing a little bit each day, maybe you try and email 10 clients in a week, for example. That's a good goal. The goal isn't to get a reply. The goal is to send the emails and introduce yourself. You can do that. However long it takes, keep making new work and improving your skills, and keep showing it to people who could potentially hire you. Then one day, you'll get your first commission. I have a whole video about what you can expect from your first commission up here, so I won't go into too much detail, but basically, a client will contact you to say they're interested in commissioning you. They'll probably send you a brief. These are your instructions for the job. And a brief will include a description of what they'd like you to illustrate, maybe with an article if it's a magazine, the size they need it making at. Maybe they'll send a mood board of things that they like. They'll send you the schedule. They'll want to see a sketched version first, then a color version, then a final version. Sometimes there are more stages, but it's usually about 3 or 4 key dates you'll need to keep to. Maybe they'll send you a price, or maybe they'll ask you to quote for the project. If you have no idea how to quote for your work, ask if they have a budget. Most of the time, they'll tell you. I'm not going to get into pricing here. I could talk about it all day, but it's too big a subject. I have a few videos on pricing on the channel here, and a step-by-step course on pricing. I'll put a link to that in the description. I mentioned earlier that I'm an illustration agent. You might have an idea of what an illustration agent is already. They/we find work for illustrators. Professional illustrators work with agents to help them with certain parts of their business. Typically, an agent will help with things like contracts and invoicing and pricing and chasing late payments and scheduling and planning projects. They take care of a lot of the non-creative parts of the job so an illustrator can concentrate on what they do best. Working with an agent can also introduce a freelance illustrator's work to a much wider range of clients. Established agencies have large networks of clients they can show your work to. Agents also mentor artists and help them to develop their portfolios. Generally speaking, you have to be at a certain professional level to work with an illustration agency. They're not really for beginners. They want to work with artists who have proven themselves professionally already and are ready to take their careers to the next level. If you want to know how to apply to an illustration agency, check out my blog post, How to Submit Your Work to an Illustration Agency. You can just Google that. So that's how you get your foot in the door of the illustration industry. In some ways it's simple. There aren't many steps, but it's certainly not easy or quick. Once you've got your first project, you repeat the process of finding and saying hello to new clients until you're busy. Once you've built up a portfolio of client work and you've got a good reputation for delivering great results on time, clients will begin to find you. But the process of prospecting for new clients never stops. Even when you're busy, you've got to make time to look for your next projects. If you like this video, you'll probably like this one, which is more advice on getting started in 2024. See you next time.